Hi guys, greetings from Bulgaria. I'm Anton, and I hope that you're excited about our night video from the Selenium 4 course. Let me share my screen. Until now, we talked about how you can upgrade from Selenium 3 to Selenium 4. Also, we talked about the relative locators that are part of the new release of Selenium. Then I showed you how you can use the new logic of CDP or Chrome Developer Tools Protocol to use the initialization logic for displaying notifications and highlighting elements. Then in short, we talked about Selenium IDE, next generation, and the rewritten Selenium grid that has many new components, and you will be able to use it in basically using Docker containers. Also, in the fifth video, it was more advanced. We talked about geolocation testing, localization testing, and many more advanced types of automated testing. Then in the sixth video, we talked about responsive testing and especially how you can use it for layout testing for different layouts and in the cloud on different browsers. Then on the seventh video, we focused more on troubleshooting and doing test failure analysis using the bidirectional protocol and CDP. And in the last video, we talked about in much depth about how you can modify, intercept traffic, capture it, and change it in many ways. If you missed some of the videos, check them. There is already a playlist about it. Also, you can subscribe to the channel and hit the ring bell so that you get notified when 𝒏𝒕𝒐𝒏 publishes new videos. Also, don't forget to check the 𝒏𝒕𝒐𝒏 blog because many of these topics there about them, they are really detailed articles. And of course, under the description below, you will find a link to the full source code that we're going to talk about next. Now, in today's topic, we're going to talk about capturing performance metric using CDP. And before doing that, I'm going to show you many resources because this is a really tough topic, to do a talk about. Because many things are changing every day, and there are new tooling, new measurements. And now, if you are familiar with my other courses on 𝒏𝒕𝒐𝒏 channel, probably you watch the JUnit course. If you miss it, check it out. It's even if you're a beginner, it will help you. Even if you are a regular to senior position, it will help you as well, because we're starting from the beginning and going in much more details and in depth. But there, I use this to do MVC application, to do demonstrations and write scripts about it, and especially for data-driven tests. And today, in my example, I'm going to use this site once again. Basically, it's a simple to-do application written in different technologies. And there is a reason why I'm going to use this particular website. As you know, if you watch some of my previous videos, you know that I'm always trying to give you some real stories from my practice. And actually, a month ago, actually for the whole year, my team has to work on a project where in this big enterprise, we're trying to update the front end from one technology to another. But in order to do that, it's not just the functional testing, but we need to make sure that the performance, because this was one of the main reasons to upgrade from one solution to the other, is really behaving well, right? So we have to do this kind of performance tests. Of course, we're not, they're dedicated tools for performance and wall testing. However, we can utilize our functional Selenium tests for this job as well. And I'm going to show you probably how we can do it with a mixture of tools. Of course, there are many different metrics, as you will see. It's not just the time for loading that really matters. Now, I'm just quickly going to show you what we are going to do. You're just, typing to do items, right? And then you can check them, you can delete them, that's it. In our case, in order to really see the performance there, we are going to type 100 items to the list. And there is a real goal behind it. Because sometimes in these new single page applications technologies, if they are not implemented well, they may lead to memory leaks. And actually, this was a real case in my practice before that we catch with these functional tests. We catch a real memory leak. And if you use the developer tools, as you can see here, this measurement total JavaScript heap size, and if you keep doing some actions and this is keep increasing and increasing, even if you reload the pages, probably you have a memory leak. This was our case back then. And these profilers are really good, especially in Chrome, and I'm going to show you how we can use them. But of course, we're talking about performance-related metrics, and as I told you, as you know, the performance of our website is essential. And when we use the word fast in this context, what do we mean? Well, the performance turnout, it's something relative. And a website might be fast for one user situated in Europe and slow for another who lives on an island. And you're going to see that especially in the next chapter from our course when we're going to talk about simulating network conditions. Anyway, two websites may finish loading relatively at the same time. However, one of them may seem that it's loading much faster. Another may appear to load fast but respond poorly on user interactions. And over the past few years, members of Chrome team, in collaboration with the 𝑑𝒏𝒕𝒐𝒏 Web Performance Working Group, have been working to create standards, a new set of APIs, and metrics that are more accurately measure how the user experience the performance of the web page. The types of metrics that they created are basically they're, for example, the perceived load speed, how quickly a page can load and render all of its visuals on the screen, how quickly a page can load and execute any required JavaScript code for components and respond promptly to user interactions, visual stability, smoothness, do transitions and animations render at a consistent frame rate and flow fluidly from one state to the next. Maybe the best place to learn about these metrics is to go to WebDev Learn. This is a special website from Google. And here in this collection, there is a section about metrics and web vitals. I will come to this later, talking about web vitals. And when we open the metrics, you will see here important metrics to measure. And let's discuss them in short. The first, Contentful Paint, measures when the page starts loading to when any part of the page contents is rendered on the screen. The next one, the largest Contentful Paint, measures when the page starts loading to when the largest text block of image element is rendered on the screen. Then you have the first input delay. This measures when a user first interacts with your site. For example, when they click a link, tap a button, or use a custom JavaScript-powered component, to the time when the browser is actually able to respond to that interaction. This is really, what we talked about perceived load speed, right? Then you have the time to interact. This measures the time from when the page starts loading to when it's visually rendered and its initial scripts, if there are any, have loaded, and it's capable of reliably responding to user input quickly. Then you have the total blocking time. This measures the total amount of time between first Contentful Paint and the time to interact, and where the main thread was blocked for a long time to prevent input responsiveness. And I know this sounds complex, but we're going to see some tools that can help you. And then you have the last one, which measures this is basically a score of all unexpected layout shifts that occur between the page starts loading and when its lifecycle states change to hidden. And the first one here, time to first byte, is a foundational metric for measuring connection setup of time and web server responsiveness in both in the lab and the field, and it helps to identify when a web server is too slow to respond to a request. And as I said, it sounds complex. Usually in DevTools, if we open, one of the tools that you can use, you can use Lighthouse. Built by Google, Lighthouse is an open source auditioning tool for developers. It works over the Chrome DevTools, and basically it runs series of audits to measure not only the performance, but accessibility, SEO, best practices, some practices about progressive web applications. And also it works not only in DevTools, but it's also as an extension to Firefox and Chrome and Edge. So you can use it to get some insights about the performance, as I said. And actually, you can combine it even with your Selenium tests. In a minute, I'm going to show you how you can do it really easy on the cloud, especially in the Lambda test cloud. I worked on an article about how to integrate it in our enterprise open source framework. Just in short, I don't have the Java code, but just in short, I will explain the idea just to see that it's really, I'm not sure that it's worth so much code to make it work in your case. Anyway, the thing that I'm doing is I'm installing Node.js. I installed the Lighthouse command line tool, and then from the C# code, we're just running a process against our browser. The whole complex logic here is that we want to, for example, our test to perform 20, 30 steps behind the login, and add some data, delete some data, and then perform the report, not just load a single page that the normal plugin is doing. And in order to be able to do all of this complex stuff, basically we need to start our Chrome driver in debugging mode, and basically open a remote debugging port. And basically this needs, after that, we need to connect the process of Lighthouse to this debug port, and then we are going basically to reuse the session. This is how all of the magic happens. And then I'm just instructing my Lighthouse to generate the report in JSON format that I can easily, in C#, Java, or any language, I can then deserialize it to C# objects. And then I can do asserts and whatever I want. That's how I did it. The complex part is when you need to, usually, especially in continuous integration, we don't run our tests in separate browsers. And the complex part is how do you integrate this solution with Selenium Grid. I actually managed to do that. It was really complex because there isn't much documentation about this. Let me open it. I'm going to show you. I actually created servlet about it. Here is Lighthouse grid extension, and this Lighthouse servlet basically do the same thing. Basically, these servlets can then be used as an extension to your Selenium grid. But as you can imagine, if you use not your own grid, then probably you won't be able to do that. However, we don't need to do that because this is something built in Lambda test, and we can use these reports to get some insights about this performance matrix. The only thing that you need to do is here it is, the initialization logic. The only need that you need to do is that you need to add this performance option to true, and that's it. Then at the end of your test, I already just let me remind you what we are doing in our test. If we return here, basically in our DevTools, I created a JUnit data-driven test with many of these technologies. As I said, we're going to open the same application for all of them. In a minute, I'm going to explain the DevTools code, but the important part is here that we are navigating to this to-do application. Then we open the technology. We're just clicking the link of this particular technology. And then I have a special generate random string. It's out of the scope of the video, but I'm just adding new items to the list. That's it. In a minute, we're going to discuss the matrix. That's all of it. We're just adding 100 items for each particular technology, and we get the matrix. And I already executed the test so that we don't lose time to check the results. I opened just a few of them. And as you can see, we have this performance tab. And on the performance, you can see the different rates about, as I said, the different best practices, right? And when you click on performance, you'll see all of these metrics that we discussed earlier. And you can see the seconds and all of that. However, you cannot get them as numbers in the code so that you can do assertions. However, if you need to measure it, I guess you can just go to the platform and check them. As you can see, for this is why I picked this result. I think this was Angular 2. Here, there was a total blocking time of 60 milliseconds, which is not good compared to 0 for others. Here, as you can see, it's 99 for Knockout.js. And as you can see here, the total blocking time is much more. So you can make some assumptions based on it. Also, if we check the Lighthouse scoring calculator, you can see how this impacts the score if you increase the milliseconds. To be honest, I'm not sure at which point this is measured, whether it's just probably it's in the end of the test. However, probably it's just reloading the whole page. But anyhow, this can be insightful to you. Next, another way that we could measure without DevTools, the performance results is if you go to Chrome driver Chromium website. In the past, I used this approach. Is natively, even before the Selenium 4 release, there was a possibility to instruct the Chrome driver to, here as you can see, to walk the performance metrics to Chrome options. However, right now with the Selenium 4 release, if you copy and paste this code, it's not working. I tried to make it work, but it stopped working with the Selenium 4 release. So you need to use the Chrome DevTools, which is good. I mean, you have all the metrics and everything. So I'm going to explain now how you can do that. Now, if we return to, for now, I'm going to skip the part with the native cloud, right? I just left two of the technologies just to show you some inputs. And the thing that I did here is, again, if we check the documentation, if we go to the Selenium documentation website, here on the Chrome Developer Tools, you'll see that we can capture performance metrics. And the thing that we need to do is we need to get the DevTools, create a session, then we need to enable the performance the same way we did for the network. And probably you need to do all of the actions, and then you need to collect the metrics. And then we're going to print them. This is basically what I did. And here it is. By the way, I did one more thing. I wrapped all of this in a try block in order to basically, when you get the DevTools, you need to close it at the end. And the try block is going to do this for you at the end of the scope. The scope is defined by these brackets. And we're doing the same thing, creating session, enabling the performance, doing all the actions, getting the metrics, and print them. And I already, as I said, I already did that. If we check them, or okay, I'm going just to run the tests one more time just to see what it's doing, and then we're going to see in the console the metrics. I'm going to print them on the console, but of course you can probably, the thing that you need to do in your case is that for you want to pick 2-3 essential cases for your application, then for all of these measures, you need to execute them more than once. And you need to be sure that no one is doing something like wall testing or, you know, doing something with the test data, right? Probably you need to execute these tests a couple of times, at least 10 times. Then, as you know, usually we remove the best result and the worst result, and we're making average for all the results. And then you can put them into Excel sheets and compare the results. Of course, this cannot measure the load. As I said, we're just gathering some data. Probably for more advanced load testing or performance testing, you need to use another tool such as JUnit. However, in JUnit, I'm not completely sure that you can get some of the stuff that we can get natively from Chrome Developer Tools. And of course, here we are using the whole code of our functional tests, right? So here you can see all of the different metrics. I print them out here. And now comes the problem. Because as you saw in the documentation, there wasn't really explanation about what this means, right? I tried to search on the internet about what are these metrics, what they mean. There is even a dedicated thread on Stack Overflow about people asking about it. And even when you open here the documentation that I showed you previously about the DevTools, you will see that we are using this get matrix. You will see that there isn't really explanation about what these metrics are. And the closest thing that I found that can be meaningful to us is actually the Puppeteer framework that it's probably used underneath for some of the functions. As you know, this is automation library similar to WebDriver, built by Google. And here there is a short explanation about some of the metrics. And I found useful, especially two of them, and this is how I got the memory leak. We found out about it. This is the JavaScript heap total size and the JavaScript heap used size. Probably something else that it's important to get is this script duration, layout duration. The others, you can measure them, but especially these four, you can combine them with the metrics that you can get from Lighthouse. Another thing that you can do, this is what you can get from, again, there isn't much documentation, unfortunately. It was the same with actually with the native Chromium driver. It's the same like here, even in the Google Docs, you can find the same. There isn't really another documentation. Another thing that you can do is if you go through the WebDev website and open every one of these metrics, some of them can be measured using JavaScript. For example, this is the documentation about largest contentful paint. And as you know, again, here is the JavaScript. You can use it to execute it using Selenium, right? And let's see what this will return. You go to the console, you paste it, and here you get the times, right? And you can calculate them. This is true for most of these metrics. Some of them cannot be measured, and if you go, for example, deeper into the topic and read some of the articles, you will see that there are other APIs, JavaScript APIs, user timing, wall task, element timing, that are actually 𝑑𝒆𝒏𝒕𝒐𝒏 standards. And another good place for search for these JavaScript libraries is the Mozilla MDN web docs. Here they have really detailed articles about these JavaScript APIs. And again, you can use them in combination with the different approaches that I showed you. For example, in the past, we used the following JavaScript: performance, get entries by type, navigation, length. And if we open this JavaScript object, you'll see that we have an array, and you have all sorts of properties here that you can observe and compare. And the last thing that I wanted to talk about is the Core Web Vitals report. This is, by the way, an update that can cause major changes in how programmatic ads work, and not only. I suggest you, I'm not going into much detail right now, because you can just Google on the Lambda test blog. There is a really detailed article about it. It's just out of the scope about the Chrome DevTools stuff. Yeah, you can read about it, but here on this report, you will find that actually there are some suggestions about what is a good result, and you can use it for benchmarking, right? Whether it needs improving, whether it's poor, whether it's good. Also in this article that you will find on the Lambda test blog, here it is, Core Web Vitals Expert Tips you'll get many tips about how you can improve some of these metrics, right? And lastly, just a quick reminder again, how we can run all of this in the cloud. Basically, the thing that you need to do, we use normally everything in the Lambda test cloud. You get the credentials and everything, you put the remote driver, and the step that you need to remember is that we need to use the augmenter. And when you use the augmenter, then basically you need to augment the driver so that you have access to the DevTools interface. And after that, in the test, we are just again doing the same thing. You can get the DevTools session here, enable the performance, and do all of the measurements together with the Lighthouse reporting. As you can see, it's a really complex topic. You can really deep dive. There are many things to consider here, but I propose to you you can use your functional tests for this. One more thing to remember, especially in the last video that we discussed before, and actually this happened to me in our production projects. On test environments, sometimes because of testing purposes, the caching functionality of our websites, the CDNs, are stopped. And when you do this kind of performance measurements, you need to be sure that you are much close to what is happening on production, because you can get the wrong times. And this actually happened to us. When you measure on a QA environment without the CDN and the cache, the times were in favor of one of the solutions. However, when we turn on and run all of the tests against production with the caching and all of the infrastructure, it was completely different story. So you need to be sure, and you can get that if you remember from the last video. You can use again the DevTools to enable the network. You can disable the cache, you can clear it, and you can get whether the requests come from the cache or not. But you need to make sure that you measure with the cache enabled and the CDN and everything. I think that's all for now. In the next video, we are going to extend the topic and talk about how you can emulate network conditions, so networks, and many other exciting stuff with bidirectional and CDP protocols. Thank you for watching. If you have any comments, you can put them under the video. You can always write me on LinkedIn. Again, check the Lambda test blog. There are many awesome articles there, especially about performance. And don't forget to get your Lambda test certification about JUnit and Selenium. See you soon. Bye. Take care.